Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video we'll be talking about Frost Death Knights and their possibility and how Blizzard might be able to make the two-hand build work. There's a good chance you already heard that Frost Death Knights will be able to equip massive two-handers in their weapon slot instead of two one-handers for a dual-wield experience. However, the two-hand playstyle does seem to actually have a massive disadvantage, and I'm going to talk a bit about how are some of the different ways that Blizzard could fix it as well. And we also want to showcase you the new Obliterate Animation, which is why I got inspired to make a video on Death Knights and two-hand weapons, because this animation really looks cool. And I would like to be able to use the two-hand animation quite a lot as I play my two-hand Death Knight, and Blizzard will have to do some massive adjustments in order for that to become a reality. So let's swap from this random druid gameplay and share with the actual new Obliterate. First of all, the new Obliterate animation is fantastic. Whether your Death Knight is a skinny Nightborn or a massive beefy Tauren, the way that they swing their weapon from kind of like behind their back, overhead, clashing down on an enemy, whether it's an axe, a sword, or a mace, looks absolutely fantastic. If you're wondering what this new animation is, it's actually the Warrior's Covenant ability of Condemn. Now, Warriors were the first class that actually had a different animation based on a Covenant ability, so it's kind of cool that now Frost Death Knights have a specific animation if they wield the two-hander and use the ability of Obliterate. Prior to this, on Shadowlands, you actually have the same animation as if you were dual wielding, so when you obliterated, you actually swung both your weapons kind of sideways, but only one of your hands held a massive two-hander. So Blizzard figured out that, yeah, this is not going to really work visually, so let's update it. And it's the coolest animation ever. It makes no matter what kind of death that you make awesome, and it's just really well designed and really fresh and put together. I'm a huge fan of this animation. When Blizzard added the two-hand playstyle into Shadowlands, some of us felt that it was maybe just a cosmetic, because for the longest time that playstyle just didn't really seem like it would do nearly as much damage as a dual wield. There's a massive advantage of having two weapons, even small ones, than having a massive big chopper two-hander wielded by your Death Knight. So the fact that Blizzard is actually adding animation, specific animation for Obliterate, means that they intend for people to actually play the two-hand Death Knight, which is awesome, because again, there's been a massive issue between the dual wield and the massive two-hand playstyle. To go over what the issue is, we can start with Legion getting into Battle for Azeroth, the change that Death Knights had to go through. We're not talking about GCDs, that's still going to be an issue of a separate topic. However, for Frost Death Knights in particular, back in Legion, you had to play the artifact weapon, the kind of remnants of the Frostmourne split into two blades. It was a cool, unique playstyle, and I remember most Death Knights didn't really care much about it. It was just what everybody did. You had artifact weapons, and at the end of this expansion, you'll probably be able to go back to whatever weapon style you want. So at the time, the artifact weapons function a little differently, as in when you had two one-handers, the Death Knight didn't really feel any different than when it was like in WoW or MOP. You still had massive obliterates if you want to go for a rapid-fire playstyle, or if you want to go for a more sustained, really a lot of magic damage, you could also build your Death Knight in various ways. Heading from Legion into Battle for Azeroth, however, Death Knights, especially Frost, have gotten quite a bit of rework. First of all melee started doing a lot more damage with the auto attacks, and weapons started to matter a lot more since we dropped our artifact weapons. So all the melee classes with a massive amount of damage pool being literally auto attacks, for a Frost Death Knight, the damage of your auto attacks became about a third. That means that's a good portion of your damage that's just passively happening, so your other abilities cannot hit nearly as hard, otherwise you will be overscaling your damage. However, with Frost Death Knights, for whatever reason, Blizzard also made your Frost Fever, which is normally a dot you just maintain on an enemy, something you can spread on multiple enemies, but you weren't really a dot class, it would just maintain it so it'll be harder for rogues to catch a re-stealth, or just a little bit extra damage on the side just for the flavor. For some reason, Blizzard decided to make this ability do also a third of your damage in Battle for Azeroth. Even if you don't build Mastery, even if you go for like a Crit Haze build right now for Rapid Fire, that Frost Fever still is a huge contribution of your damage no matter how you slice it. So with a third of your damage being straight up auto attacks, and a third of your damage being this dot that's for some reason really strong, that means that your Obliterates and Frost Strikes have a very narrow window of how strong they can be. So for Death Knights, they made it more of a sustained heavy playstyle which some people are fine with. I guess if you pop your massive breath and you're breathing frosty damage at a bunch of enemies, that can kind of supplement for a bit of burst, but the playstyle definitely just doesn't have nearly as much burst and massive crits like you remember from previous expansions. With Blizzard bringing two-hand playstyle into Shadowlands, a lot of us, and I can't speak for everybody, but a lot of us that were excited about the possibility of a two-hand Frost Death Knight coming back, a lot of us were excited to have that playstyle back. Not just cosmetically having your Death Knight wield a massive weapon, but that full playstyle around the massive weapon and big crits. That playstyle is what a lot of people missed and expected with Shadowlands. Heading into Shadowlands, now you actually run into a whole another issue. Massive two-hander versus two one-handers. And this is what makes the dual wield playstyle still the stronger build instead of a two-hand playstyle. Because right now, cosmetically, you don't really do that much more damage wielding a two-hander versus two one-handers. The two-hand playstyle and dual-wield playstyle are mostly the same. But the one-hand playstyle actually has a massive advantage, because Death Knights use runes in their weapons. Runes can augment the way that your character plays. Think of them like your weapon enchants, but they just come with the class. You can have strength buffs, and a variety of new runes have been added into this new expansion, so it's going to be exciting. But the dual wield playstyle can take advantage of also another rune, which increases the amount of frost damage you do to an enemy, stacking. A good portion of your damage as a frost DK is going to be frosty. So going for a dual wield playstyle, where whether you're dual wield or two hand, you mostly do the same damage, dual wield simply just provides you an extra debuff to put on an enemy so you can do more damage. Which leaves the two-hand playstyle cosmetically awesome looking, but just kind of leaves it out in the rain without it really being super useful. What's also really cool about Frost Death Knight is some of the changes you get as you level up. Eventually, you'll get an ability where on Killing Machine procs, which allows your obliterates to be 100% crit, whenever those obliterates are 100% crit, they actually become 100% frost damage. That means all that damage goes through enemies' armor, slices through them like butter. And honestly, it's kind of a cool playstyle, just seeing massive crits pop up for a DK, since those frosty hits just cannot really be reduced by much. I wonder if hitting another Death Knight with the AMS will reduce the damage, but that can be also used for testing in the future. However, this whole new playstyle is what I was really hoping that would make the Death Knight better. Maybe somehow this playstyle ability would interact with the two-hand a little bit better than the dual wield, but right now, it actually has almost zero difference. Blizzard is definitely going to have to figure out what they want to do with the two-hand versus dual-wield playstyle. Back in the day, dual-wield Death Knights didn't have a passive that a two-hand had, where with a two-hand Death Knight, your obliterates and certain other abilities did more damage just for having a two-hander, to balance out the extra auto attack swings and even extra Killing Machine procs for playing the dual-wield build. It seems that the more you think about it, the more advantages there are for going for a weapon in each hand as a Frost Death Knight in the next new expansion. However, a lot of people want to play the two-hand playstyle. Some of the things that Blizzard I think needs to solve if they want to have mostly similar gameplay but still have some differences. With the two-hand playstyle, you don't auto-attack as often. When you don't auto-attack as often, you cannot get nearly as many Killing Machine procs, which makes it harder for you to play your Frosty Death Knight. You don't get nearly as many crits. The problem of only playing with one rune compared to two really does disempower the two-hand build playstyle Death Knight. Blizzard could maybe solve this by allowing you to put two runes in one weapon, but maybe the coding for that could also be messy. We don't really know, I'm not a game developer myself. But there are definitely issues that could and need to be solved, and I think if Blizzard can focus up on some of those issues, or maybe provide another buff for the way that you deal damage and how you proc your abilities on a two-hand versus dual wield, then Blizzard might be able to even finer tune the whole Death Knight experience. I guess only time will tell what they will do with it in the future, but so far it does seem like the two-hand playstyle is intended for us to play. Otherwise Blizzard wouldn't give it a whole new animation. But right now, if you're asking about two-hand Frost DK, right now there's nothing that really makes it strong. It's a fun playstyle, and oh man, do I prefer it. Maybe with specific talent and stat setup it could actually be quite good, but the way that the game is looking right now, at least this early on the alpha, more changes need to be done. Thank you guys so much for checking out this video. If you're wondering how Frost Death Knights with two-handers are faring, well, hopefully you guys got your answer. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see all of you in another one.